Here we are walking down the starboard side of the Ark, and over here is the middle of the structure, and you can see how massive the Ark would have been.
The world was taught Noah's Ark was only a legend, an ancient story carved into faith. Now scientists exploring a sealed chamber on Mount Ararat claimed they finally stepped inside a structure matching its description. What they recorded in those dark, frozen rooms wasn't animal remains or empty beams, but something far stranger. What could this be that will change all we thought we knew? Discovering the Ark. People talked about a giant ship from ancient times for many generations, but most thought it was just a story. However, things changed when a group of scientists decided to study a strange shape hidden in the mountains of eastern Turkey. This quiet place was far from busy cities, sitting in the dry, rough lands near Mount Ararat. When people looked at the land from airplanes, they could see it was carved into a long oval shape that looked like the outline of a huge boat frozen in the earth. People who lived nearby had talked about it for years, but only recently did scientists decide to look at it carefully and test if this place could be something special. The land formation was called the Durupinar site. It stretched more than 500 feet long. Some people said this matched the length described in old stories. Nobody could say for sure what it really was, but the shape made many people curious. Instead of ignoring the old tales, a team of researchers decided to use new machines to see what was under the soil. They brought equipment and special cameras that could see through dirt and rock. When the teams started the scans, they thought they would see normal rock layers. The area had lots of mountains, clay, and strange shapes made by nature, but the pictures that showed up on their screens surprised them. The signals revealed long, straight lines that did not look like regular rocks and dirt. Deep inside, the formation were patterns that looked too neat and organized to be random. The shapes looked like long hallways running through the center, almost as if the earth was hiding a frame of something built by people. The scans also showed sections that looked like levels stacked on top of each other, reminding the researchers of a building with different floors. To the researchers, it felt strange that such spaces could form naturally in this shape and position. They also found what looked like separate inner areas, almost like rooms separated by straight edges. The images were blurry and needed more study, but they made the team believe they were looking at more than simple rocks. Interest grew stronger when they tested the soil from inside the formation. Dirt taken from the inside had more organic material than the soil outside. This means the inner soil had more traces of things that were once alive, like wood or other materials that had slowly broken down. Some samples also showed different amounts of certain minerals like potassium, and the soil was more acidic than the land around it. Even the plants growing over the shape were slightly different from the plants around it. This suggested that whatever was under the soil might be changing how the ground acted even after thousands of years. Researchers also looked at nearby stones that were shaped like giant blocks with holes near the top. These stones were scattered across the area, and local people believed they had been there for ages. Some earlier explorers thought these stones were used to hold down an enormous ship long ago. Nobody could prove this idea, but their presence added to the mystery. Many families in the area had their own stories passed down from grandparents about the strange land formation and the objects around it. Their tales could not be proven, but they showed how long this site had fascinated the people who lived near it. Years earlier, explorers who visited the area claimed to find pieces that looked like wood turned into stone over time. Some even said there were iron streaks in the earth that might point to old nails or metal pieces. These claims were argued about a lot, and not all experts believed them, but they helped explain why the area kept drawing attention from new research teams. The Turkish government made the area a protected location decades ago, calling it a national park connected to the ancient story. This did not prove the claims, but it showed that the land had cultural and historical importance. The new scans brought that interest back to life, because they suggested something unusual could be buried under the soil. The researchers leading the new project were excited but honest about the limits. They explained that the images pointed to something structured, but only future drilling or deeper tests could confirm if the formation ever held a wooden frame or something built by humans. Many people around the world watched closely, hoping the mountain might be hiding a piece of the distant past. Background of Noah's Ark research. Long before modern tools existed, explorers and travelers told stories about strange shapes and old wooden beams found near the snowy peaks of Turkey and Armenia. These early claims often came from mountain herders, soldiers, or adventurers who said they saw unusual objects after landslides or when ice melted. None of their tales could be proven, but they created a trail of curiosity that others followed. People passed these stories from generation to generation, keeping the mystery alive even when there was no solid proof. In the early 1900s, reports about the mountain called Ararat began to spread more widely. Some climbers said they saw a dark structure buried in ice. Others described caves filled with wooden beams. Many of these stories came from wartime pilots or soldiers who flew over the region during conflicts. Some claimed they saw a huge outline under the ice that was shaped like a ship. But bad weather, ongoing wars, and limited equipment meant they could never return to prove what they saw. Over time, people realized that some of these stories were mixed with misunderstandings, tricks played by weather and light, or simple exaggerations. Still, the stories kept the mystery alive and made more people curious. Later, in the mid-1900s, interest grew again. During the Cold War, a few people believed spy satellites captured images of a boat-like shape on Mount Ararat itself. The mountain was steep, covered in ice, and extremely difficult to reach. Political tensions also made it dangerous for foreigners to visit. These satellite pictures created excitement, but scientists later explained that the shape in the images was likely just shadows, rocks, or ice ridges. No one could get close enough to properly investigate, so the claims slowly faded away. In the late 1950s, a Turkish captain named İlhan Durupinar noticed an unusual oval shape in aerial photos taken for mapping purposes. This shape was not on the icy peak, but on a softer slope many miles south of the main mountain. The outline looked smooth and boat-like, sitting on a ridge formed by ancient mud flows. Investigators visited the site in the 1960s, but they believed it was just a natural rock formation. They explained that the region had been formed by layers of lava, mud, and water over thousands of years. The early survey declared the shape interesting but not man-made. After those first tests, the site became quiet again. Most people forgot about it. Even so, a few explorers still suspected the shape was worth more attention. Among them was Ron Wyatt, whose passion for the story turned the site into one of the most discussed Ark-related locations in the world. He visited the formation repeatedly in the late 1970s and 1980s. He gathered items he believed were linked to an ancient wooden ship. His claims attracted worldwide interest, but critics argued that his findings were either natural minerals or misunderstood geological features. His work helped bring attention back to the site, but it remained highly disputed among scientists. Meanwhile, other Ark claims began to appear from different mountain regions. Some groups claimed to find wooden chambers high on Ararat's ice cap. But when experts examined the photos, they saw signs of staged setups or misidentified natural ice caves. Geologists reminded the public that ice and rock can form shapes that look like rooms or beams. Over time, these claims fell apart due to lack of supporting evidence, inconsistent pictures, or unreliable testing. Archaeologists stressed repeatedly that finding the Ark would require strict methods, physical samples, testing reviewed by other scientists, and clear geological reasoning, not just dramatic photos or rushed announcements. Another location that gained attention was Mount Kudi, mentioned in some ancient writings. A few researchers argued the Ark might have landed there instead of Ararat. They pointed to ruins and old traditions in the region. However, these theories relied heavily on cultural stories rather than scientific evidence. Without physical findings, these ideas remained possibilities rather than firm discoveries. For decades, the world saw the same pattern repeat itself. Someone announced a discovery, pictures were published, excitement rose briefly, then researchers examined the evidence and found problems. Sometimes the location was too hard to reach for proper study. Other times, the clues were weak or turned out to be misunderstandings. The man named Ron Wyatt was a man full of wonder and passion. He was not trained as an archaeologist, and he did not study rocks or ancient sites in school. He worked as a nurse in a hospital in Tennessee. His job was to help put patients to sleep for surgery, but his life changed when he saw a picture in Life magazine. The picture showed a strange boat-shaped formation in eastern Turkey. That shape stayed in his mind. He believed it might be the remains of Noah's Ark, and from that moment, he spent many years of his life visiting the site and telling people about his theory. Wyatt's first trips to the Durupinar Formation began in the late 1970s. He went back again and again, bringing other people who believed his ideas. Some well-known people in Christian communities joined him. Over time, he said he had found many kinds of evidence. He talked about finding wooden beams that had turned to stone, bits of metal that he said were old ship parts or nails, animal waste that had become rock, and even hairs. He used metal detectors and sometimes said he used radar tools to map what he thought was a pattern of metal supports under the ground. Wyatt also pointed to huge carved stones in the nearby area. People often called these anchor stones. He believed these stones were once used to hold down a massive ship. Through the years, he and his supporters built up a strong story. The size of the formation matched what the Bible described. The materials he found seemed to fit with how ancient ships were built. The stones around the area seemed related to a large boat. Wyatt's claims caused strong disagreement among experts. Many scientists and archaeologists said his conclusions were wrong. They argued that the wood he reported was actually volcanic rock. The metals he found with his detector were just natural mineral deposits that form in such places. Iron or other minerals created by normal geological processes. Some even raised concerns about his methods, arguing that Wyatt did not follow proper archaeological steps and lacked training. His approach seemed too informal and rushed compared to how trained scientists work. The academic community did not trust his findings. Despite all the controversy, Wyatt's work left a strong mark. His passionate exploration and the stories he told helped create public interest in the Durupinar site. He shared his findings in books he wrote, videos he made, and talks he gave to religious groups. He built small models of what he believed the Ark looked like based on what he saw. He believed deeply in what he had found, and he worked hard until his death in 1999. He never gave up on his mission. The story did not end with Ron Wyatt. His passionate commitment inspired other people to keep searching. He became a controversial figure who created divided opinions. Some people saw him as a brave explorer who challenged traditional science to find biblical truth. Others saw him as someone whose excitement made him see things that were not really there. Whether people agreed with him or not, Wyatt did accomplish something important. He turned the Durupinar site from an unknown place into one of the most talked about locations in Ark research around the world. His legacy continued through the many people he inspired. They kept searching, kept asking questions, and kept hoping that ancient stories might have more truth than most people believed. Wyatt showed that one person with determination could bring worldwide attention to a place others had ignored. His work, whether right or wrong, opened the door for future researchers to use better tools and methods to study the same site. The conversation he started about Noah's Ark would continue long after he was gone. Andrew Jones continues the search. Another researcher named Andrew Jones picked up the work many years after Ron Wyatt. Wyatt. Jones had been fascinated by the Ark mystery since he was young. He said he first started thinking about the Durupinar Formation when he was still in middle school. Over time, his curiosity turned into a serious commitment. He moved to Turkey so he could study the site more closely and spend more time there. This was not just a hobby for him, it became his life's mission. Andrew Jones leads a group called Noah's Ark Scans. With his team, he has carried out modern investigations of the same Durupinar site that Wyatt loved. But Jones does things differently than Wyatt did. Rather than just looking at the surface or using simple tools, Jones' group uses ground-penetrating radar. This technology is very powerful. Professional specialists operate this radar equipment. The radar can see below the surface and create pictures of what lies beneath the earth without having to dig anything up. This means they can explore without damaging the site. When the team scanned the formation, their equipment found something surprising. Inside the mound, between about 8 and 20 feet underground, there were angular shapes and parallel lines. These were not random patterns. To Jones and his team, they looked like the walls or rooms of a structure. The pattern suggested there might be corridors or chambers inside. The shapes had right angles and parallel lines, which made them think about the walls or support beams for rooms. Jones pointed out that these shapes matched what someone might expect if there had been decks inside a ship, similar to floors in a building. What made this work different was that the radar team came from outside the Ark Hunter community. The machine operators worked for a company called Topa 3D based in Oregon. They did not know about the Durupinar site before they started their work. When they ran the scans, they were surprised by what they found. These underground patterns did not look like typical geological debris or normal rock formations. Even people who knew nothing about the Ark story found the patterns unusual. Jones's group has also done careful soil and chemical studies. They have gathered soil samples from inside the formation and from the area right outside it. The reports show that inside the formation there is more organic matter. Organic matter means materials that came from living things. The soil inside also has higher levels of potassium, which is a mineral. The pH level, which measures how acidic the soil is also different inside compared to outside. Some scientists on the team think these chemical differences could come from decayed wood or other organic materials. These would be the kind of materials you might find if something made of wood had been buried there thousands of years ago. At the same time, Jones is very careful about what he claims. He openly says that despite these interesting findings, they have not yet found a fully preserved piece of ancient timber. What they call traces are more like chemical hints or signs of structure rather than direct, obvious pieces of wood or artifacts. He and his colleagues are careful to say they are not claiming they have found a complete intact ark. They talk about possible man-made architecture under the ground based on patterns and clues, but they do not jump to big conclusions. Jones also talks about the need for more work. He and his team say they hope to do core drilling in the future. This means taking narrow tube-shaped samples deep from the formation to test more directly what is down there. But they say they will not rush into digging without a solid plan for protecting any fragile remains. They want to explore carefully while also preserving whatever might be there. They understand that if they damage the site, important evidence could be lost forever. This modern research brings new life to the questions Wyatt raised decades ago. Where Wyatt used his intuition, metal detectors, and small samples, Jones brings more advanced tools, wider scientific knowledge, and a longer-term vision. He carries forward the dream, but with more caution, more checks, and a clearer focus on what can actually be verified. Jones represents a new generation of Ark hunters who combine passion with patience and hope with careful science. Impact on believers and skeptics. The discovery of Noah's Ark affected people in different ways because it touched faith, science, history, and human curiosity all at once. For many Christians, the idea that a structure shaped like Noah's Ark might truly be lying under the earth felt deeply emotional. They saw it as a reminder of a story they had carried in their hearts since childhood, even though no one was claiming that absolute proof had been reached. The thought that such a thing might be real made the world feel more magical to them. They felt encouraged by the idea that a story, often treated as only a lesson or symbol, might actually have roots in a real event from long ago. To these believers, this discovery felt like a quiet message, telling them that ancient stories sometimes hide tiny pieces of truth under layers of time. They had grown up hearing about Noah building a giant boat to save his family and animals from a great flood. Now, there was a possibility that this was not just a made-up tale. It gave them hope and strengthened their beliefs. Many felt that science and faith were finally meeting in a meaningful way. They appreciated that modern technology was being used to explore something mentioned in their sacred texts. Scientists approached the situation very differently. Their focus stayed on the soil samples, the radar readings, the unusual shapes under the ground, and the possibility that this area once held wooden structures now turned to hardened earth. They were fascinated, but in a careful way. They wanted measurements, clear testing, and more fieldwork before drawing any conclusions. To them, the excitement meant a chance to examine geological puzzle, study the region's history, and look into a formation that did not behave like the surrounding rocks. While some scientists admitted that the shape under the ground looks surprisingly similar to what an ancient ship outline might show, others argued that nature itself can form shapes that trick the eye. Mountains, water, wind, and ice can carve the land into unusual patterns over thousands of years. This disagreement did not stop the curiosity, though. Instead, it made researchers want to gather more evidence, especially because the formation did not match typical natural patterns found in the area. Scientists knew they needed to be careful and not jump to conclusions too quickly. Scholars viewed the discovery through yet another lens. They cared about the cultural meaning, the long tradition of flood stories across the world, and how this discovery fit into the history of archaeology and religion. Many noted that civilizations from different parts of the world shared tales of a great flood. Ancient Mesopotamia had flood stories. The Sumerians had similar tales. Early Jewish storytelling included Noah's account. This suggested that something significant might have happened in ancient times that many cultures remembered and recorded. Some historians found it interesting that the shape and location lined up with old accounts that mention mountains near Ararat. Others pointed out that similar claims had been made before, and many had later been dismissed. So they watched this new discovery with a mix of hope and caution. They wanted to see if this one would survive the test of deeper analysis. They reminded people that extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence. The world in general reacted with a mixture of excitement and debate. People who had never cared about archaeology suddenly found themselves watching videos, reading articles, and following new tests. Children became amazed at the idea that a story older than their great-great-grandparents might have left a mark on the earth. Adults found themselves imagining how people thousands of years ago built things, traveled, and survived difficult times. Even those who did not believe in the story at all admitted that the structure was strangely shaped and raised questions worth exploring. But of course, no discovery of this sort comes without controversy. Some skeptics said that the shape was simply a rock formation molded by centuries of soil movement. Others pointed out that if a massive wooden vessel truly existed in that spot, it would be nearly impossible for its full outline to survive for so many thousands of years. Wood decays, metal rusts, and time destroys most things. A few argued that earlier claims about the Ark had turned out to be mistakes or hoaxes, so this one deserved a very careful examination before anyone could believe it. There were debates about the age of the soil samples, the accuracy of radar readings, and whether ancient lava flows could form shapes that look artificial. Some raised concerns about seeing what people want to see rather than what is actually there. They warned that excitement can sometimes cloud logic and make people interpret unclear evidence in ways that support their beliefs. Ongoing significance and future. On the other side, those supporting the discovery responded patiently to the critics. They pointed to the radar scans showing straight lines and compartments under the ground. They mentioned the metallic traces found in the soil that did not match the natural surroundings. They highlighted the fact that the site's dimensions were close to traditional descriptions from ancient texts. They did not claim final proof, but insisted that the formation deserved serious research because the evidence was too unusual to ignore. They believed the controversy itself was healthy because scientific progress often grows out of disagreements that push people to investigate more carefully. In many ways, the discovery created a bridge between belief and inquiry. People who normally never agree on anything suddenly found themselves discussing measurements, ancient writings, geology, and early civilizations together. Even the arguments brought a shared sense of wonder because they showed that humans still care deeply about understanding where they came from and what stories shaped their ancestors. It reminded the world that mysteries are still hiding in mountains, deserts, forests, and layers of earth waiting to be uncovered. The meaning of the discovery continues to unfold because the work is ongoing. More studies are happening, more tests are being prepared, and more eyes are watching than ever before. Scientists plan to do deeper drilling to take samples from far below the surface. They want to analyze these samples in laboratories using the most advanced equipment available. They hope to find traces of ancient organic materials that can be dated accurately. They want to understand the chemical makeup of everything found at the site. What makes this moment unique is not just the shape in the ground or the location that fits an ancient story. It is the combination of new technology, patient fieldwork, repeated testing, and the willingness of experts to examine everything without rushing to conclusions. Previous Ark hunters often laid bold claims based on limited evidence. This new generation of researchers moves more slowly and carefully. They publish their findings. They invite other scientists to review their work. They admit when they do not know something. Whether the structure is truly the remains of Noah's Ark or a very unusual natural formation, it has already changed how people explore history. It has pushed scientists to improve scanning tools and develop better ways to see underground without digging. It has encouraged archaeologists to study regions that were long overlooked because they seemed too remote or unlikely. It has inspired scholars to revisit ancient stories with fresh curiosity and ask new questions about what those stories might mean. The discovery has also shown that modern technology can help answer very old questions. Ground-penetrating radar, chemical soil analysis, and digital mapping are tools that did not exist when earlier explorers searched for the Ark. These tools allow researchers to gather information that was impossible to obtain before. They can create detailed pictures of what lies beneath the surface. They can measure chemical differences with great precision. They can compare data from different parts of the site and look for patterns. In the end, the most honest conclusion is that the discovery is fascinating, but not fully proven. Some details match expectations, while others need more study. There is excitement, but also caution. There is hope, but also patience. The truth is still being uncovered, layer by layer, test by test. And that in itself makes the story powerful. It reminds the world that history is not settled, that the earth still keeps secrets, and that sometimes even a simple shape beneath the soil can bring people together in wonder, reflection, and a renewed desire to understand the past. The Durupinar site may hold the remains of an ancient ship, or it may be a remarkable geological formation that happens to look like one. Either way, it has succeeded in doing something important. It has sparked conversations between scientists and believers, between skeptics and dreamers, between the past and the present. It has shown that ancient stories still matter to people today, and that the search for truth can unite people across different backgrounds and beliefs. As research continues, the world watches and waits, hoping that each new test will bring answers to questions that have puzzled humanity for thousands of years. The journey to uncover the truth continues, and that in itself makes the story powerful. Click the next video shown on your All for